Hey, 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 good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 43 of the Freedom Seekers Live TV. And with a lovely lady, she has an amazing accent, and I was already hoping she would, because she is from from England, from the UK. She loves salsa. She is from the neighborhood of Birmingham. She is a writer, and she has an amazing story. So I want her to tell you all about it. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Lisa M. Billingham, and she will tell the story about the M later on. But first of all, welcome, Lisa.
Hello, Monique. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's great to be here.
I'm so happy that you are there, and thank you for taking the time to inspire other women. So I'm really looking forward to your story, but let's begin with the beginning. Who was the little Lisa? Can you tell us a little bit about her? Was she already this bubbly, this funny, because you are really a funny lady? I think
Thank
people
you.
have a lot of joy with you, but were you already entrepreneurial as a kid, or not at all?
Not at all.
No?
Not at all. I was quite, I was very shy when I was little.
Yeah.
I don't remember much of my childhood, if I'm perfectly honest, but I was bullied at school. I was kind of the ugly duckling.
Okay.
I wear glasses again now, and for years I hadn't, but when I was at school, I used to wear the very old fashioned NHS, and anybody in the UK will remember these. They were pink for girls and blue for boys,
Okay.
and they were like thick, like really chunky lenses, chunky glasses, and they were awful. And for a long time, I sat at the back of the class, and
No.
I was squinting like this because I couldn't see, and then I had these glasses. So then the bullying carried on. So if you can imagine that with permed hair, because my hair was greasy, so it was not the most pleasant of childhoods. I wasn't born into poverty or anything like that. It was just the fact that even from then I looked a bit different, and I don't know whether that was to toughen me up or what, but it certainly worked.
But how children can be almost evil, in
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
cruel, yeah.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah, very, very.
And how did you did it continue during high school, or was it in the what's that? Is that preschool, or how do you call it in England, until 12 years?
It was junior school, primary
Juniors.
school. Um, it was in high school as well,
Mm.
not to a greater extent, because it was nipped in the bud by somebody, by a girl actually. It was a boy that did most of the bullying in high school, and it was a girl who stopped it, which was quite
Okay.
strange. But it was just, I never wanted to go to school. I hated school.
Okay.
I hated it.
Yeah.
Just because of that, I used to make myself ill. And I just look back nowadays, and eventually, I mean, I didn't stand up to the bullies then. Later on, when I started working, it carried on into my working life, because at the time when you're younger, you don't see anything wrong with it. It
Hmm.
was the norm,
Hmm.
and then obviously as you realise, as you get older, you think, hang on a minute, but then you don't know how to deal with it. So
Yeah.
it's like, what do I do now? And how do I do this? And letting it carry on to adult life as well.
Okay.
And then I just found the strength from all sorts of different places to go, do you know what, I'm not putting up with this anymore. And
Hmm.
I'd work with managers, I'd work with colleagues that tried to do it, and I just thought I could probably have been even stronger, but I did get to the point where I could say, I'm not doing this. And then
Hmm.
you get to the stage where, oh, for fear of my job, I can't say that, or I'm not allowed to do this and that. And then I just got to the point and just thought, stuff it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna say it how it is. Didn't gain me much popularity, but it did. In the end, in the long run, it did do me a favour. Did do me a favour.
Doesn't
It took a lot to
it
sort out.
doesn't it maybe if people don't like it very much, but it also gives you creates some kind of respect to yourself, first of all,
Very much so.
from you to you, your own
Mhm.
self-respect. But when you don't put up with everything, isn't that also when there becomes a change in other people, that they are going to treat you differently?
Yes, very, very much so. Very
Isn't
much
it?
so. It's quite fascinating, actually, the change, because they can obviously see a change in you, and often. you would, you know, if your colleagues or boss or, you know, whatever, then there's not much you can do about it unless you change, unless or until you change your job. But with other relationships, people will notice the change in you. And very often, because they can't do it any longer, they leave your life, which is the best thing, obviously, that can happen, because you don't want that in your life.
No.
But often some people see it as a challenge and think, oh, well, she's just stood up to me, so now I'm going to do it even more. That's the sort of thing to be like aware of, which I kind of wasn't, because I thought, well, hang on a minute, they're still trying to do it. Why?
Yeah.
You know,
because they're now used to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there are certain people would phone me where I used to work and go, how do I handle this? How do I handle this? And I'm like, you have to stand up to them. You have to tell them how you're feeling. And you don't have to be nasty about it. You don't have to, you know, you can, there's so many nice ways that you can do it. And the nicer you are, the more it actually surprises them.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that little video of the girl at the football she's flagging? I don't know how you call that. She's on the sideline and she says when the ball is out or when there is a fault, and she stands like this, and the football player is in front of her, but really like this, and he is swearing at her, shouting at her, and she stands there like this, and she doesn't move. She only says 2 or 3 words. And on the bottom is, this is how you raise a girl. And then afterwards there is the how do you say, the one who decides in the football game, in the
referee.
The referee, yes. And he comes and takes off the guy and gives him a yellow card. But the thing, how that young girl, because I think she's under 20, something like that, she stood up against the guy and she stayed there, and she didn't do a step. I found that very impressive, and that is and that is something that you can learn, because we women often are taught that because we are women, maybe we are a little weaker than the men, but that is not true. We have other strengths.
Exactly.
Is that what you found?
I did, and it was, funnily enough, it was always men or boys, obviously when I was at school, that were the bullies. For me, it was never. In fact, I don't remember. Maybe the odd occasion it was women, but I often found that it was either jealousy or fear that you were going to take their job, or jealousy in, you know, a relationship, or, you know, or in freedom, because, you know, at the time, if I was single and just doing whatever I wanted, and they, here's a fella, or they were perhaps, you know, married and craving that freedom, or, you know, vice versa, or, you know, and it's, you don't know how somebody is feeling. And that jealousy is just so unfounded, because I used to be jealous myself of people, and I think so unfounded, because you don't know what is happening behind closed doors, or, you know, you just think, oh wow, look, that's the perfect couple, that's the perfect job, that's the perfect life, when actually, if you actually were to swap places, you'd sit there going, what the hell am I doing this for? You know, and it's very much like sort of coming back to yourself and to thinking, no, I'm quite happy with what I have, thank you very much. I'm very grateful, and, you know, this is my lot in life. That's fine, I'll just go with it.
But you overcame a lot, because in 2011 you were diagnosed with anxiety and depression.
I was,
but you didn't want to stay on meds. On medication. You wanted to overcome that. How did you do that? Because there are so many people that I talked to my brother-in-law about this a little time ago. You can give people meds and they still stay depressed. So those meds are not the solution. It's really the where it comes from. How did you cope with that? How did you know that you could overcome this and do it without medication?
I don't know. There was, at the time, I didn't think about it. There was just something in me. I'd only been taking them for a couple of weeks at most. My memory is quite foggy from then, but at most I would say 2 weeks. And I just went, They made me feel worse. And then I went back to the doctors and they went, well, they're going to. That's how they work. And I'm like, I don't care how they work. I don't want them. No. Take me off them. So in all fairness to her, she's okay, but, you know, you need to come back and blah, blah, blah. And sort of like, even though I'd only been on them 2 weeks, she still said, reduce them before you come off them. I thought, okay, fair enough. So that's what I did. And I just knew I'd got to find a way. And it was a hard journey. It was a tough journey because I'm going, well, what do I actually do now? And it was that throw yourself out into the world. But when you're in that mindset and you're in that brain fog and you really don't know which way to turn, it was so hard. And I just thought, doctor had said, just go out. You're off sick. You know, you're obviously not taking the medication, so you do whatever. But you've got to go out and you've got to do something because obviously, you know, things will take a turn for the worse. And I thought, you just go out there and go, well, what do I do? And I just went into town. Okay. I just went into town and you can call this what you like, but it was a sign. And several times I've noticed since, and I'm paying more attention now, obviously, with the mediumship that I do. But at the time, I didn't even think about it. And I just walked past, it was a training centre, shop, therapy centre, all sorts of things rolled into one. And in the window was an advert for Tai Chi class and a relaxation class. And both of them started that week. One was the following day and one was the Friday. And I just went, okay. And I just stood there and I wasn't planning on going in. And the lady who owned it was just happened to be there. And she went, you look like you're in a state. And I'm like, you know, couldn't speak, couldn't, you know, and I just, she said, come with me. And I think, oh, no, what's she going to preach to me? What's she going to do? You know, and she just sat me down and she just went, what's going on? And I just, it all comes out. And then I just said, I've seen, you know, I've just been to the doctors and I've just seen those signs in the window. And she just signed me up. They weren't very expensive. We're going back a decade. It wasn't very expensive. I just signed up for both of those, started them. I did the Tai Chi for a year and a half. And the relaxation class was only a 5-week short course. I did both of them. Obviously, you make new friends. They come and go. And, you know, it was the right thing at the time. But that sign was so powerful. Something just drew me to go into town and down into that precinct.
Oh, well, you felt that there was something, there was that little pull and you listened to it. That is so powerful because most people, many people say that it's woo-woo, that's blah, blah. I have to say, I maybe thought that 7-8 years also, but I realized in the last 2-3 years that it is really our little voice, our subconscious, that is really telling us like it is. And we forgot how we listen to it because children listen to it. They do what they want. And we growing up, it gets covered by life. But is that where you discovered also personal development at that moment, or how did you roll in the coaching mediation profession that you're in?
I did. I read a lot, and I do mean a lot of self-help books. I listened to meditation CDs, as well as doing the Tai Chi and different things. And you name it, I was hungry for it. I was just, what's going on? And at the same time, I experienced my first ever healing experience, plus also healing crisis, because often after you have healing, you go into a crisis. And that was around the same time. So all of this compounded together, and I just came out there and I thought, I've got to do some research on this. I need to understand it. And then these certain signs, and I looked into mediumship, and then I saw a poster, completely random. Are you psychic? And I'm just like, what? So again, more research, went and sat in a circle. I did my coaching qualification. I did my crystal therapy qualification, all while I was at work, and all trying to get myself back to where I needed to be, to just find myself again. Even ended up working abroad, all to try and find myself. But at the same time, I was helping others as well. So I never did the courses for me. I always did them as training for something else. And I thought, I got to do it. But that was just the way it was. And then I'd sit in circles, and then I went to see a medium. At the time I was at my worst. My friend literally dragged me along. That was another catalyst for change. That was another mind-blowing experience. Again, more and more research. I have kind of a research brain, even though I don't think I've got a logical brain anymore. I have a research type brain, because I'm like, I need to know everything about all this. And now I'm sort of like, actually, do you need to know? Just, go with it, notice the signs. But it's when you're in that brain fog that they're going, hello, hello, and you don't see them. And it's not until you actually step back, and I've had to do it again recently, it's not until you actually step back and you go, oh, yay.
Yeah.
And you learn to recognise what's good and bad, because everybody can say to you, well, butterflies is good. Well, to me, no, it should be calm, it should be chilled. Butterflies doing this is not good. And it took me a long, long time to recognise that what I thought was, oh, yes, do that, go that way, was actually, no, don't.
Okay, wonderful. So now you're not only helping people, but you also wrote 2 books, and your 3rd book is coming out very soon. But can you please talk us a little bit through, now you're a coach, you're helping people. How do you help other people? What is your trade? What is your specialty?
I veered away from the coaching, and I do more of the mediumship now. So it's all spiritual and psychic guidance, and it's all about, for me, you can sit and have a reading and just know that your loved ones are there, and sometimes for people that's enough. But for me, I like to think that my clients, and this is where the coaching does come in, because I often wondered why I did that qualification but didn't really make anything work with it, because whilst I'm doing readings, I can obviously see and I can give the messages, but if the recipient needs a little bit more, then the coaching side of it can come in, and it can be, look, what step do you need to take? And I always ask that at the end of the readings, whether it's group, individual, whatever it is, whether it's just me talking in front of an audience, that you can actually take something away from it, and you can make, even if it's a tiny, tiny, tiny change, that you can go away and you can do it yourself. Because very often we come to rely on other people to kind of pull us out of whatever situation we're in, and the only person that can get us out of whatever it is that's going on is us. It is ourselves. But I always, we all need help at times, and it's just that little guidance or just tools, which you've got. Just sometimes it needs somebody to make you aware of it and to give you that self-belief back.
Yes.
That you've got, you just buried it because that's the way that the world thinks you should be suppressed, and you actually shouldn't.
Yeah. And how did you know that you could do that? When was that shift? Because you were still working, and now you're working with clients, with patients, or how do you call your clients? How did you know that you could do this? Because this is very specific.
Yeah.
You knew it for yourself, but how do you know that you can do it for others?
It's very strange in that I actually knew I could do it for others before I knew I could do it for myself, because I ignore the signs. I'm really good at ignoring the signs. And
you're your own worst client then.
Yeah, my own worst enemy. But little things happened when I was in my teens and I didn't understand what was going on. But then it was when I went to see a medium myself. And I went back a few times, and I went to the same one, I went to different ones, and one just went, you can do this yourself. You don't need to keep coming to see me. And I'm like, what? And that's where you kind of, you're teaching yourself, you're learning from other people and all the rest of it. But then it was her that said, you can do this. So she made me read for myself. It was a crystal ball, just pure chat. It just happened to be a crystal ball. And I'm like looking at it going, oh, like, these don't look good. These just don't look good. And she's like, no, it doesn't, does it? And go on, carry on. So I did, and then I could see this, that, you know. And then she went, yeah. And she'd brought my granddad through previously. So, and I knew what she was saying. Nobody else could have said. So that started me like, okay, from 110% skeptic to, okay, now I'm believed, just show me what I'm supposed to be doing. So her telling me I could do it myself.
Okay.
And she also said at the same time, you will be doing this for others and you'll be traveling with it. And I went, don't be silly. And you'll be going abroad and you'll be living abroad. And I'm like, I am not going on an aeroplane ever again in my life. And she's like, oh, yes, you are. So I walked away from there going, yeah, whatever. And I did. And I've worked abroad twice.
Oh, wonderful. So, and then the book, because when did this started?
This was about the same time. This was all...
also in 2011,
12, yeah, and the healing and the mediumship and things. And it was all part of me finding my way, including the crystal therapies, because obviously as you're training, you're working on each other and you're working on yourself, and coaching was the same. So all from 2011 through to like 2015, 16, 17, and then I was made redundant. So I set up a business coaching, didn't work. And I'm like, but I've just paid all this money. I've just done all this and that. And I then realised that, and even going back all those years, I said, I know it's going to be the mediumship that helps me make my way in this world. But it took me like almost 10 years to go to believe that and to run with it, which is, it's like, no, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. And then you think, yes, I can.
How did you know that you believed? When was that shift, and what happened after? Because that is often a distinction for people at that moment. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah. Yes. When I had the very first reading, which was around about 2011, 12, I believe, the breakdown had been coming on for a long time before then. And I'd hit rock bottom, I'd broken. And I was kind of like, I was down here, and it was like, well, you've got two choices. So it was the time that I went to see the medium, the first medium I went to see. And I just sat there in floods of tears, just totally like gobsmacked at what she was saying. And it was she brought my grandfather through. And the things that she was saying were just, nobody would have known. And it was at that point, and I thought, okay. And it was her in the first reading that said, you can do this yourself and you will do it for others. And it was such a powerful message. And I was in floods of tears, and I just thought, wow. And she was as well, actually. And I just came out of there and I went, now what? It really did like blow me away. And I was like, now what do I do? And that's when I started doing the research. But that was also when I knew I'd got to do it. I also knew I'd got a long journey in front of me to get to the point where I was doing it, because I'd got a lot to learn about myself in that time as well.
Okay. I have a dear friend. She says this. I'm going to show it. She said, Dee says, when you are open to new things, signs and synchronicities appear. It's a magical divine intervention. Dee is she has been on the show already, but this is something that is so true. That has also to do with the belief, being open to new things, and then a lot comes to you, because you worked through those years, but then 2020 hit.
Yeah.
So how was that for you? Did you have to pivot? How was the change? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Massive, absolutely massive. I was working abroad, had to be flown home, so I lived and worked abroad. My house was rented out, my car had been sold, and my job had gone. So like a lot of people, overnight lost everything. But 2 weeks prior to that, I'd said, I'm not doing this anymore. I was working as a holiday rep, and the job over there, I was in 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, it was easy. I enjoyed the job. But then the living arrangements, you never know who you're going to live with. You don't know what, you don't know them from Adam or Eve. And I just thought, I'm too old and long in the tooth to do this. If I lived in the destination, then yeah, I would do it. And I thought, no, this isn't my path. So at the end of this season, which for me was the end of October 2020, I'm going to look for something else. I'm going to do something else. Well, the end of the actual season was the end of March, which was when we were flown home. And I'm like, wow, barely time to get your head around it, like everybody. And my friend on the plane said, well, what are you going to do, Lise? And I said, I'm going to write my book. It just came out from nowhere. And 12 months previously, I'd actually been on a course about writing a book. So I knew that I was going to do it as a novel, that I was going to do it based on my life experiences, because the idea was to help other people. And I didn't want to, well, this is your fault, that's your fault. I'm not taking responsibility for my own life. I don't want any of that, like, name and shame and kind of thing. And I thought the easiest way to do it is to turn it into a novel, because part of it's true and part of it's not. And then in end of 2020, November 2020, I published the first one.
And the first one is Katie, a new chapter from the series Never Look Back. And Tom, the next chapter you launched in this year, beginning this year, if I'm not imagining. So what are these books about? Because the third one is going to be a thriller or something like that.
The first one's it touches on mental health, it touches on abuse, major surgery, because I had a hysterectomy in 2016, and as we spoke about earlier, I've got no children, so that was kind of a very big mindset shift for me. With my consultant going, I'm not going to operate because you've got no children. I'm like, you are going to operate, but that was my choice. And it was cathartic writing it. It was hard to write some of those, like especially the abuse and thing, and like her thoughts were all over the place, which was exactly how I was. Suicidal thoughts, you name it, it's in there. And then when I wrote Tom's in the army, so the character's very much like his battles with mental health as well, but from a different perspective, and how they interact with each other. And because set in the 80s and 90s, I didn't want mobile phones and technology, which has been a godsend, but we've lost the art of communicating with each other properly. And I thought, I want that to come across in the books. And Tom is very much, there's a very distinct, like, not a love-hate relationship. They both want to get together, but do they actually manage it? And what are they both playing at? And, it's very much how they help each other, but probably don't realise it. And that's been very much the same throughout my life, how people have helped me, and they probably don't even realise. A couple of people have been catalysts for me not taking my own life. And they don't know. One does, but the other one doesn't. And then, it's just that split second where somebody just sends you a text message and goes, how are you? And you're like, oh, okay, somebody cares. And when you're in that frame of mind, you're like, nobody cares. Why am I here? What do I do? That usual thing. And then from a different character's point of view, and the third one will do the same, but this one's a criminal one. This one's got a criminal background, but he's a very much older gentleman. He's Tom's father, but he's got very much a soft spot for Katie, because he can see the state she's in when she comes to interview. So he gives her a chance, and you see how he reacts to things, and how he's kind of almost making her journey about him. There's some things that happen in the first book and you think, was that the right thing for her? He thinks it is, but does she? And that happened a lot in my life. It was that I wasn't strong enough to go, actually, I don't want to do this. This isn't right for me.
And is that the older person then in the book that is you, that is maybe more matured and seeing now the things that Katie and Tom did? Is that a little bit the gist of the third book?
Yeah, he's very much a he's got a lot of money and nobody knows where it comes from. So it's very much a criminal background, and I'm doing some research with some phenomenal people at the moment about the criminal element and of the kind of 60s and 70s and 80s that could have got him that kind of money to move away from somewhere like London to somewhere like the Cotswolds, which to the UK would make sense. But, you know, London's, and you've been to London yourself, haven't you? A massive bustling city to like the quiet of the Cotswolds, and what got him to that point. But I'm now, as I said before, I've got a research brain, and I find that quite fascinating that there's so many things, and it's the undertones and the undercurrents of a lot of the things that happened in those eras that people don't talk about, and that's what I'm hopefully trying to get through in the third book.
Oh, wonderful.
So there'll be mental health issues in there as well.
Okay, so we are already on the end of this, and I know there is so much more, so I have to invite you again to come back to tell more. But what would be your biggest light bulb from not being an entrepreneur at all to becoming an entrepreneur? Because it takes some skills. Not everybody is born like an entrepreneur, but you can, like yourself, become an entrepreneur. What has been your biggest lesson that you could make the shift from not being an entrepreneur through all the hardship that you went through to becoming an entrepreneur and a writer and a novelist?
I think for me, a lot of it's about self-belief. A lot of it is about having the belief that you can do it. Whether you think you're a born entrepreneur or not, you're right. It's the same with everything, isn't it? If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Yeah. A lot of it is down to self-belief. But I think the biggest catalyst for me was the way that I allowed myself to be treated in the corporate world. And when I was made redundant, I actually was begging for redundancy for a long, long time. And then I sort of went, oh my God, what have you done? But I knew I'd done the right thing. And I knew that whatever my path was going to take from there, it was to be self-employed. I mean, I did go and work as a holiday rep in between that time as well, like in between the two businesses. And that was just, again, I needed to go away. I needed to find myself. I wasn't fully healed, even though I thought I was. I've been through a lot. Obviously, the redundancy and the hysterectomy came fairly close together. So you're grieving for the redundancy, then you're grieving for the hysterectomy, the loss of womanhood, if you want to put it that way. And then it was like straight into a business, and then, oh, what's going on? So I went and worked away and enjoyed it, and then came back and started again, basically. But I do think there's a few not kind of warnings for people, in that make sure that you are working with people that you trust in business. It's a very long and lonely journey for entrepreneurs, whether you're male or female or however you identify. It's a very long and lonely journey. Make sure you've got people around you that are going to have your best interest at heart, and you them as well. I've lost a lot of money throughout this journey, a hell of a lot of money, that I think now, God, if I had that back, what would I do with it now? And I would do things differently. I would do. There's no two ways about it, but I don't regret what I've done, because I've learned a lot from it. And I think part of that learning is the most important is to understand yourself and what you want and why you want to do it. And very often, the freedom that it brings as an entrepreneur, you think, wow, I did this for the freedom, and I did this because, I don't want anybody to control me, and I don't want to work 100 hours a week, and then you work 100 and you 20 do that anyway. Yeah, 20, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, but ultimately it is that sense of free. And it's took me a long, long time to like sort of drop the corporate habit, and I'm still in it sometimes, to go, well, actually, I can get up this morning and I've got no appointment. So do you know what? I'm just going to chill out. I'm not going to have a shower until I'm ready to do an interview, and I'm just going to sit and read. You know, but tomorrow is a different story. I might be writing, I might be booking in calls, I might be sending, you know, it's the having that choice and having that freedom and making it work for you in your way is the most important thing, I think.
That's so beautiful, because a lot of people think, okay, it's all love and fun, and no, if you want to build something, you have to work for it, and it's up to you how much and how often. So Lisa, thank you for being so vulnerable. Because this must have been some really, really difficult chapters. Your books, they can be found on Amazon. I found them there. When will your next book come out? What will be the name? Do you know already?
The character's Jack, but I'm not sure. I wished I'd have named them just like Katie, Tom, and Jack now, but I'm not sure what the subheading of the book will be. But I wanted to publish it in 2022 because I wanted to publish a book a year. But obviously I fell behind, and I should have done one last year, and I didn't. So I'm hoping, I'm working towards it being, I'm doing some more research in September. I'm going to London to do the Craze tour and the Jack the Ripper tour, and the Craze tour will fit in with the book. So from the back of that, I'm kind of thinking maybe January, February next year now.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
So until that time, we have the time to read Katie a new chapter and Tom the next chapter.
Yeah.
So, Lisa, where can people reach out to you if they want to talk further with you, if they want some advice, or just want to talk to you about things you can do for them?
Anything. My website is 𝗬𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗗𝗏.com.
Yes, and I forgot to talk about that. Oh, that's not a good one. Sorry.
I am on Facebook, I'm on Pinterest, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm exhaustingly on social media. But the best place is my website, and my email address is lisa@lisaMbillingham.com.
Okay. Is it this way, 𝗬𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗏.com?
That's it. Yes, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that's me.
And also on Facebook, maybe write a little message.
My Facebook page is Lisa M. Billingham again, and it's now, Facebook have changed and they've let me change my name, yay! And it's now psychic medium and author, because it was just author, but now it's both. So
well, I have the link in my in this description, so people can click on it, 𝗬𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗏.com. You can remember that, and I will put it in the first comment. So Lisa, do you have a last word of wisdom before we part?
Be yourself. Be true to yourself. Most people out there, including me, it's still part of your journey. It's being your authentic self and being in your own power. We all make mistakes. You know, don't beat yourself up about it. Just be as you can be, because it is a journey. It is hard. And never ever be afraid to reach out if you need any help.
Okay, I love that. I will leave it at that. I wish you all the best, lots of success,
so much.
And I hope to talk soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Lisa.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, wasn't this an inspirational conversation? I really loved it. You can see how she is passionate about what she does. And I loved it when she said it's all about the belief, because that is really when you have belief in yourself, believe in what you are doing, then all the rest will follow. And of course, that isn't simple, but like Lisa does, and that helps a lot, is doing research. When you're doing something, do some research, but because the more knowledge you have, the more experience you have, the more self-belief you will get, and the more you will see results that will give you the belief in whatever you are doing. So if you have questions for Lisa, then please go to 𝗬𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗏.com or reach out through Facebook and send her a little message. And of course, go to Amazon to buy the books, Katie, a new chapter, and Tom, the next chapter, by Lisa M. Billingham. I'm sure you're going to love those books. Or maybe you know somebody in your environment, in your family, that is really struggling with mental health or with anxiety issues, and you could really help them out with that. So for now, I'm going to leave you for your weekend. It's here 6 p.m. in the afternoon on Friday, so the weekend is almost starting. Today I'm going out to eat a bite with one of my best friends, and I will see you on Monday for another live training. So bye for now, have an amazing weekend, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.